Oh, good afternoon, and it is afternoon, everyone, just in case. I would like to welcome you to the Finance Committee meeting for February 19th, 2025. We're here to discuss today continuation of the capital request from the mayor. So we'll be referring to that document that he has posted on the website and that we all have access to. In addition, we have Parks and Recreation today here, the director's here, Police Department is here, and Public Works is here. So I'm hoping that we can be done by 3:30 and that we can get our questions answered within that time frame. So forgive me if I do this, but I just want to make sure we have everything answered as well as respecting everybody's time, especially your time. Director Gonzalez, you're first on the chair, so we have a lot to pick from today. Mayor Sarin has just entered the room. I'm gonna do roll call, which I've neglected to do. So today we have Councilor Posh here for my quorum, and Councilor Maddox is on the committee. He's vice chair and he's up on Zoom. We have Councilor Petrus with us, Councilor Cobb. We have Mayor Sarin is in the room now, and the directors will identify them as they come to the table. Finance Director Hairston and Addie Ballister, our council clerk. So I'm gonna start the meeting with Director Gonzalez, and I do have a few questions. I'll ask a couple and then I'll give others a chance to ask them and then come back to me. So first off, I wanted to know, we've got your list and I was having trouble and maybe I wasn't able to see where it was on a mayor's list of capital requests. Have you included costs for installing the Dennison Park splash pad and Cumberland Pool and boiler repairs in your capital request list for 2025?
So the Dennison Park splash pad, the installation was already encumbered. Those dollars are encumbered.
Okay, the PO's out there then?
Yeah,
Okay.
that PO is already out there. We will have to look down the road, I suggest we do it as a budget adjustment down the road because we don't necessarily know what it's gonna be at this time until the old pool building comes down. For what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to cap within 5 feet of the building, 5 to 10 feet of the building, the utility lines, which should help us with the installation. And then also we're gonna have to look at a way to house the equipment for that splash pad. But that's all dependent on the pool building coming down. So that's why I say it's better served if we do that down the road as a budget adjustment compared to putting it in the budget now, but we don't know what a number is gonna be for all that.
So you foresee it being completed in 2025?
I would love to see it. I wasn't here at the time when it all came to fruition, but I would love to see that all happen.
Thank you. One more question. There's $600,000 for AV equipment as one of your line items?
There's 60,000.
60,000, typo on my part. And where will that be installed?
That's gonna go in rooms 7, rooms 1A and 1B, the senior conference room and multi-purpose room. Some of those rooms have some AV equipment in it. It's gonna be upgrading the equipment. Other rooms don't have anything in them, so it's gonna be to install completely.
That'll be wonderful, thank you. Councilor Posh, you have any questions?
I'm still kind of going over this. If you could ask someone else first. that would
All
be
right,
helpful.
Councilor Petrus?
I noticed the skate park grant in here, so that is money that we're not going to have to pay for. That's something that we're receiving from the federal government. Are there any other capital requests that would be paid for with money from outside the city?
No.
Doesn't look like it, just wanted to verify.
No, but just so we're clear, the Kane Park tennis court and skate park replacement, we have to match those dollars.
Okay,
So we're gonna get 390,000, so we have to match the dollars of 390.
okay,
So it's not a replacement, it's a match.
okay.
But there's nothing else at this time that's a replacement.
Okay. With regard to, I see 360,000 for vehicles and 550,000 for park maintenance equipment. Could you share some detail on those two items?
Absolutely. So the 550 for park maintenance, that's for us to get a new Bobcat, a new tractor with attachments, stump grinder, an infield groomer, and a new trailer. And as far as the $360,000 for vehicles, we're looking to purchase one new dump truck with a salt spreader because we have one currently and it's constantly in and out of service. So we want to purchase a new one with that. Two new facilities trucks to supplement our fleet, and then one new hybrid SUV.
And it looks like those two items and the $600,000 for security upgrades in the community center are the largest requests here. Could you help us to understand why those are necessary this year and why it would be better to make it in 1 year as opposed to doing it over 2 or 3 years?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I'll go into the $600,000 for the building security upgrades. Both the security and the fire alarm system. So it's two completely separate. We're allocating basically $300,000 for each of those.
Okay.
They're both since the beginning of the building, which is 22 years. The fire alarm system is on its absolute last leg and just needs complete replaced.
Okay.
And our security system, same thing. The doors don't alarm when they're supposed to go off. The cameras, I know that we're always upgrading cameras in this room. It hasn't been upgraded in probably 20 years over there, so we need to just upgrade some of the security system. So though I felt those were just necessary to get done for security purposes. As far as the other things, it's some of that equipment and then the vehicles are going to be important as well too, because we're working on creating a split between property maintenance and parks. The property maintenance going back under there, so it's going to be important when we make that split to have some equipment for parks and some equipment for property maintenance. Right now, they're kind of using all the same stuff, so it's going to be important this year when we make that split that each department kind of has their own pieces of equipment to use on a daily basis, so we can become more efficient and get stuff done.
Okay. And one last question: the $600,000. You mentioned the security upgrades. We've heard about emergency buttons in the senior center not working. Would that be addressed by this as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Counselor Cobb?
Thank you. Concerning the security upgrades, have we gone out and got quotes for all of these items you've identified, or are we just ballparking?
Yep. I've gotten quotes.
Okay. And then the rink flooring, which rink is this going to be for? The south rink?
This is for the north rink.
The north rink?
So when the renovation happened, the flooring inside of the actual rink itself was all addressed, but nothing in the rink lobby was addressed whatsoever. So we have two different types of flooring there. So this would be to make it all uniform and matching all the way across, and then also get some minimal upgrade locker room upgrades as well too.
And the locker rooms, are these the hockey and ice skating locker rooms?
That's correct. Yeah, the 8 locker rooms that are in the rink side.
What about the locker rooms in the community center side?
There's nothing in the capital for that.
Have you received any complaints about the condition of those locker rooms?
In the short period of time, I have not, but I'm sure that they could use some TLC eventually, but I have not gotten any complaints immediately.
Okay. And the nature trail upgrade, what park is that?
I'm looking primarily at Forest Hills Park. This is to do some work inside the actual trails themselves with some clearing and some reorganizing of some paths and different things like that make more sense, because we do have some flooding that comes through there and it floods the paths. So we did walk through, myself and Tom Fidanza, our assistant director, walked through with some people that do this type of work, and they kind of scoped out a new path for Forest Hills Park that would avoid some flooding and whatnot.
The AV equipment, where is that going to be utilized?
As I just said, it's going to be in room 7, rooms 1A and 1B, the senior conference room, and the multi-purpose room.
Are there any needs that you're aware of in either the senior citizen part of the community center or the general community center? Are there any needs that need to be addressed by the city in that part of the facility over the next couple of years?
I over the next couple of years, absolutely. I mean, we do have a 22-year-old building that we are gonna have to address some things, such as, upgrade some of the lighting and different things like that. It is antiquated, but I mean, I think that the priorities are on this list. I mean, as far as the next couple of years, yes, we'll have to address some other things.
And how about the exercise equipment?
It's fairly new. I would say within the past 5 years, I think they got it right before COVID. And so basically it's sat for a year, so that's a year off that it had. And we keep looking to supplement our exercise equipment, but I think that the exercise equipment that we have right now is sufficient. And I think that down the road, when it becomes not sufficient anymore, we look in to either purchase some new, or there's some other options of lease programs and different things like that to keep our inventory, new all the time. So we can look at those options when they're good, but I think that they're fine now.
I recently sent you an email and I copied the mayor on the exercise equipment.
Yeah, we have purchase orders out, and we're just waiting for the company to come out and fix the equipment. It gets used on a daily
Sure,
basis,
yeah.
so that's just normal wear and tear. It's nothing to do with the equipment being old or anything like that. It's good equipment. It's broken equipment from the normal day-to-day use.
And in respect to what was allegedly said, have you looked into that? And if it is occurring, will you address it?
I will definitely address anything that's been said, for sure. I have not heard anything, but I will definitely address anything that's been said.
Okay. And lastly, the splash pad, the splash pad, is that money that's been encumbered, is it sitting in 216? 216?
I believe that's where the money is encumbered. I would have to check the account. I don't wanna speak prematurely, but I would have to look at the actual purchase order itself and see which account it came from, because it was taken out before my time.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Can I say something real quick? I just want to give that to you. On the email that you sent, I would just kind of did some digging myself. There's about 400 some odd plus employees that work for the city of Akron, in the city of Akron. Did you hear what I just said?
No.
City of Cleveland Heights. It is impossible. I mean, to be able to control what maybe 1% said, and I agree, they shouldn't be saying, hey, we don't have the money. That's not really the case, but it's really hard to kind of say, to go back and find out, hey, did you say this, and to investigate it, so to speak. But I think it's a good message to say, and Andres has to staff, hey, we're getting this stuff fixed, and let's, and it's disconcerting, I agree. But given the number of employees, it's really hard to track that down and say, did you say this? I just wanted to, kind of level set it there too.
And I didn't expect you to be able to determine
Right.
who it was. My concern was if it is being said, and I
Yeah.
have no doubt
Right.
that it was said to this resident. I don't know why the resident would lie to me or
No, I don't
offer
think
that
so.
up.
No, I didn't think that.
It should be corrected to the
Right.
extent that that perception is being
Yes.
communicated to the employees.
Yeah, and Andres has talked to them. I got it too, and you're right. But I wanted it's just hard to
Yeah.
to control all of
Okay.
that. But thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go back, and my first question included Cumberland Pool. What's the status on that? Have you got enough funds to get that repair done and maybe do anything to the boiler that needs to be done?
So let's go back to last year. There was $300,000 appropriated for the new boilers and whatnot. At that time, because we were looking at different avenues of what Cumberland Pool was going to look like, those boilers were still in operational phase. So we decided to reappropriate those dollars for the Cumberland Pool painting project that's gonna be happening this upcoming spring. At this time, I think that we're okay boiler wise. Obviously, if an emergency happens or something like that, we're gonna have to come back to council, but I think at this time, until we see what the future of Cumberland Pool kind of looks like, and they're still operating, I think that we kind of put that on hold right now.
So you let us know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, trust me, I'm not gonna take the complaints and without having some type of solution as well too, so.
It's just very hard on people with arthritis. So,
Yep.
one last question for you. Our sidewalks right now are not passable in a lot of neighborhoods, and we've talked in the past, prior to your arrival here, about purchasing some sidewalk snow removal equipment. When you talk about the Bobcats that you have, How many do you have right now?
Currently, we don't have any.
Okay, but you're gonna buy one, did I hear that on the
As
list?
far as parks wise?
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
So,
They may have some at public properties, or I'm sorry, at the public works, I'm not aware, but as far as parks wise, we don't have.
okay, and maybe this is a question for Director Klinkscale. If we have some bobcats that are available, they could go down some of the sidewalks, especially around the churches and the synagogues and the schools, where kids are walking in the street and families are out there. I'm hoping if not in 2025, that somebody will think about that for 2026, because it's really difficult right now in the neighborhoods.
Understood.
So just a piece of information that help you think
Understood.
about. Yes, Counselor Posh.
At some point, I'd like to be able to have an opportunity, I think, and hopefully my peers would agree, to just sort of sit down and get a better lay of the land of where we are with parks, Parks and Rec. Such as, what was the utilization last year? And I know this is all new to you, you're coming in, but, we've got to have some kind of data to really understand who's using what facilities. Because I think that would help us when we prioritize things for budget purposes. I mean, for example, I'm going back to the November capital request, which I know is not on the table today. But, there's a lot of money here being asked for Denison that we're not spending this year, but we know it's gonna have to be spent at some point. But, reality, how much use does Denison get, versus maybe some other properties that we have? So it'd be really, really helpful to have a better understanding, at least from my perspective. I think it would make our job a lot easier when it comes to budgets and to collaborate with you to maybe go above and beyond with some of your asks are. Specific to this round of conversations, I really need more information on the splash pad and the other unknowns regarding Denison. We have a $500,000 estimate from November to remove the bathhouse. In my world, to take out Coventry School, we had an estimate for $600,000, the school district did. That was a couple of years ago to demolish that whole building. So this seems like it's a big number. I think there's other issues regarding utilities and stuff that need to be taken into consideration. But can we get kind of a good accounting of exactly where we are with the splash pad? Because I know you came in halfway. Some of the money has been spent, because I know it's sitting in a parking space behind the ice rink right now. That's the mechanics,
Sure.
the swings and things part of it. But it still has to be installed. I am worried that we're gonna be asked to have to spend another $500,000 halfway through this budget cycle on something that we know we're gonna have to spend, but we don't know exactly what the amount is. I'm okay walking into this year with some unknowns, but can we just get maybe a list from you of all the things that we have? And if one of them is like an unknown and it's gonna be like a 6-figure unknown, just give us an estimate and just say this is an unknown figure, and just to help us understand what we're walking into if we're not approving it today.
Yeah, and the one thing that I will say is that the demolition of the bathhouse has already been, those dollars have been encumbered. So that's not dollars that we're gonna be coming back to council for regarding the demolition. The couple of things that we didn't know prior to that is we didn't know that they were going to be capping a lot of those lines that accessible to us that we can be reusing and stuff like that. I think a lot of that $500,000 number before was anticipating that we were gonna have to go in fresh and redig lines and all that good stuff. So I don't think that $500,000 is even an accurate or even close ballpark onto what we're gonna need. Like I said, we have to figure out how we're gonna tap into those lines, primarily, number one, and number two, where we're gonna house the equipment. That's gonna be our two major expenses coming into a budget adjustment going down the road. I don't think that that's very major. It won't be nowhere near $500,000.
Okay.
Just put it that way.
Okay.
That makes
It's a
sense.
big, splash pad's a big deal. It's been sitting, not being used. People see it, people know it. It's one of the things that I know multiple peers have shared with me that they hear concerns from residents. We see it in emails. It's one of these reoccurring things where people feel like the city dropped the ball with the splash pad. And we need to convince them that the ball's not dropped, it's in process, and we just need to get a better sense of what it's all about. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Counselor Cobb?
One more, and this, I guess, is more of a statement going forward. I think it would be helpful to the extent that funds have been encumbered by prior council vote that weren't spent in any year, that those get highlighted somewhere in the financial reports that we're getting. So we are aware of that because, and looking at the current statements that we get, and it has a projected year-end budget for each of those funds, that could be misleading and leading us to believe that those are funds that can be freely spent when at least a prior council has encumbered those funds. And I don't need it on this, I'll just speak for myself, it doesn't need to be done on the small items, but let's set a dollar amount, let's say $250,000, because something like the splash pad is larger than that. I think we encumbered some money for Blanche a prior budget season ago that's sitting there that's never been spent, and that's over $1 million. So we should have that information available, so we'll know that.
Perhaps we can work with Finance Department on some kind of narrative that we get when we get our financial statements. It's a good idea. Anybody else?
My hand has been raised for
Oh, I'm
about
sorry,
15
Anthony.
minutes, so I'm gonna have to just start unmuting myself to talk because this isn't clearly working. I've been waiting and I don't know what's going on. So I'm just
Counselor
gonna
Maddox,
chime in,
I
hopefully you guys can hear me. Is it clear right now?
Counselor Maddox, I apologize to you.
So I've got a question of clarification about something that Councilman Posh said at the beginning of his statement, and I wanna make sure that I'm hearing him clearly. Did you state that you wanna have a future conversation about the uses of our parks and possibly tying the usage and activity in those parks to our budget? I just wanna make sure I heard you clearly. If that's not what you said, but that's what I heard, so I just wanted to clear that up. Is that what you said?
I think you took one additional step than what I said. I would just like to have some better idea of what our utilization of the parks are. So when we're prioritizing budget items, we can take that into consideration.
Okay, so that is what I heard then, is that's one of those things we can take a look at. I just wanna know this, I just want you to know historically, that's gonna be a problem for me because that's why Denison lost its pool in the first place. It's because they were saying no one was using Denison on the north side of town. We were going to dump all of this investment into the other parts of town. And that's precisely how we ended up in the situation that we're in. This city historically has continued to stay because no one was going that way or there weren't any activities or no one was over there. We're going to divert our programs to the other side of town. What we're doing right now is trying to shift back to that and really correct that. And as a young man, I can tell you, I watched those programs be removed from the city. Not because we weren't using them, but because other parts of the city were using their parks more, including that pool. So I just want to be very careful that we're going to have this conversation because that's how many of our households were impacted in the first place on the north side. We were told that because there's not much going on or our young people weren't interested in the parks, we're going to invest that money into the other portions of the city. And so I just want to be very careful about that, especially since one of the things that I wanted to invest in was that splash pad and increasing the budget for that. And so I just want to make sure that we're not solely tying any activity or who's visiting what park based on that, because we all know there's people who don't want to step foot on the north side of town. That's not my concern. I want to make sure that all of our parks are equally invested in, and so that all of our residents, no matter where they are, can see that investment and see their tax dollars and see their time and see their community, their leaders investing in that. I'm not concerned about whether or not there are 10 or 15 or even 100 more people going to another park at a certain time of day. They all deserve those resources. So I just want to make sure we are not tying that to that, because that's how we ended up this in the first place when you don't have a Denison pool. So I just wanted to state that. I'm looking forward to having that conversation in the Parks and Rec Committee or any other committee we can have it. But that's a dangerous road to go down if that's what we're gonna talk about. That's how we ended up here in the north side being overlooked for so many years. It's because no one was there, no one cared, no one walks through, and so we just de-invested from that area. And I don't want that to happen again. The only other thing I want to add is I want to thank the rec director for this information, but I want to make it clear to everyone, there was no misinformation about that splash pad. I've been following it since we invested it with ARPA. The presentation and the information that he's just stated, council has gotten multiple times. And so this goes back to council again, making sure we are articulating the information we're receiving to the public. Because if they're confused, it's not because he hasn't stated this information or anyone previously in administration. It's because maybe it's how we're communicating that information. But it's been very clear where we were in this process multiple times with this splash pad in terms of what was encumbered, what was ordered, what was spent, and what we were waiting on in terms of including what was happening underground. And so a lot of what we're hearing today, we're not hearing for the first time. And so I want to make sure he knows that I recognize that he has done some of this presentation before. And so thank you for that. Thank you.
Councillor Maddox, thank you. I would like to reiterate that we're trying to make sure that we understand all the items that are on the list that the mayor's provided to us. And if they're not on the list, are they encumbered? So that's where we're at the moment. Councillor Posh.
You know, I just think you insinuated, Councilman Maddox, that I was trying to use data to try to close things on the north side of town when I'm trying to advocate here at this table to get this splash pad in. One thing that you don't know about me is my favorite pool was the Dennison pool, and I'm pretty upset that it was removed. But to try to make an accusation that I'm trying to use data to maybe improve usage of our pools and things on the north side of a town, but try to insinuate that I'm trying to use data to close things, I think you've stepped off the deep end with that statement.
Okay, I'm gonna put that conversation to close. Any other questions for Director Gonzalez? Thank you so much for all your work, and from myself, I think everything that you've asked for makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the
Take
time.
care.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Larson. Between directors, are we able to ask whether we got clarification on the fire truck being purchased?
The fire truck was not purchased as far as I can tell. There's no indication that we purchased a fire truck at the end of the year, which
Okay.
makes sense.
Okay, so it should still be included.
That's correct.
Okay.
Chief Britton.
Yes. Mayor, I gave all the council members this, just, I know you probably have it, but just so I couldn't figure out how to print it out on one page. The front page and the back page has the narratives for each item or project.
I have a tail end question, but is there anything, you've done a really great job on the narrative, so does anybody have any questions in addition to the narrative that Chief has provided? I think it's interesting, the situation where we need to get the doors repaired, the control system repaired. Is it a safety thing that the state's concerned about?
Yeah, according to Captain Sonner, who's our jail administrator, again, we weren't anticipating for this total system failure, but yeah, everything the module has to be fully operational. Could there be a conflict in policy with the state? I don't know, but we certainly don't wanna lead to that, but it's definitely an emergency situation. It presents risks to the safety of the inmates and the officers because the module's not working and you can't hit the digital controls to get back in there. So, you know, if something would happen in the jail, you'd have to have the keys and it would just only, hinder getting back there.
It has to be pretty frustrating, so hopefully we can get that. That would be a priority for you.
Yeah, it's on the.
You got your PO ready to go?
Well, it's a little more complicated. I'm meeting with the administrator tomorrow to discuss options the best way. It's a lot more entailed beyond my depth of knowledge and Lieutenant Corrigan's depth of knowledge as far as wiring, being the code, so there's a lot more to consider in this, but like I said, we're meeting with the administrator in the morning to get some further guidance how we can get this done.
Okay. And you've got your orders, are you ready to put your orders in for the 5 hybrid police cruisers?
I have to check with Lieutenant Corrigan, and I know he was working with John to get that done.
Okay. Because we talked originally about making sure that order went in as soon as possible, because it takes a while.
Yeah, if we ordered them now, I was told August.
Okay. And the live scan needs to be upgraded, obviously.
Yeah, we haven't had any other correspondence from the examiner's office yet, but it's coming. We just wanna have this in order and prepared so we can have a fully functioning system for that.
Anybody else have questions? Counselor Posh?
So the 5 police cars that need to be ordered by the end of February 2025, we all agreed that we needed to have this done, and hopefully it's gonna get done. I'm afraid though that because it hasn't been put through a budget process, that you guys aren't gonna be able to issue your purchase orders for it.
Well, I'll have to confirm with Lieutenant Corrigan. I know he's been on top of it. It may be, they may be done or entered. That very well may be the case. I just have to double check.
Well, can someone get back to us on this particular item? Because if we've got to meet to get this done, I mean, we all agreed that if something needed to get done within the first 3 months while we were in this temporary budget, we were willing to address things just like this. So I am hopeful that this is not on council because it's not being done because we did agree to do it.
Yeah, no, it's, I will get you an answer and, in between the breakers.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, hopefully it won't be an issue at all, because council will pass a budget soon. That's my hope.
Maybe March 3rd is the earliest though, so we're looking at the end of February then.
I think we'll be fine.
Okay.
Unless you guys wanna hold a special meeting, which is also a possibility,
No.
but that's on you.
And the renovation, I'm assuming will get started as soon as you can get that agreement going as well.
That also presents a similar challenge to the jail control system. That project has a lot of moving parts to it, again, that include HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and that's, I know Lieutenant Corrigan's done a lot of legwork on getting some pricing done, but I'm gonna add that for Administrator Corrigan for tomorrow too, to help us work through.
Is the police locker room on their agenda possibly? No? Okay, so what is will be our cost then?
Oh, yeah.
Not that Leopardo's not our cost, but, all right. Going once, going twice. So appreciate your time, Chief Breton. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, and I will.
Thank you for doing this.
Yep, absolutely. I'll get that answer for you in 2 seconds.
You're up. Director Quinn Gallup is joining us from Public Works. Again, I've got a few questions, so I'll,
Madam Chair.
Mayor Sarin.
Before you do, on this particular department, there is something that I think we left out unintentionally from this capital request that I did want to at least bring up.
Okay.
We can have a separate conversation about timing and that sort of thing, and sort of what fund this would come out of, or what revenues we might be able to try to apply to it. But the transfer station,
Right.
we need to repair that, and I think that was what, $850,000?
It was $850,000 that was allocated for it last year, and we have requested an additional $200,000. Number one, because it was last year, and because we want to include updating the office where they pull into the transfer station.
That was on my list of questions, so I know we talked about sharing with Shaker, is that what we're doing for now,
Well,
or?
That's what the delay was.
That's what the delay was. That's why
Okay.
we did not get it done last year.
Okay, all right, so we need
Because
to,
they were getting their transfer station rehabbed, so we couldn't coordinate it.
okay. So do you see a fund out there, Mayor, we could grab that from?
I don't know, do you have any particular thoughts on that, Director?
I think it actually came out of, I had to look and see where it came out of last year. I don't recall right off the top.
Entry with me. But yeah,
We can take a look at that, and that's something, I'm not even sure what the time frame would be for getting a rehab done.
I don't know what the time frame would be, but just, start bidding it and coordinating with the city of Shaker. And we would probably have to haul some of our landfill to Rumkey's station in Newburgh Heights, which will increase our costs for landfilling at that location. So we'll try to coordinate it so that it's done as efficiently as possible as far as time, so that we don't incur a lot of increased costs on the back end, because it costs us twice as much to landfill locally as it costs us to haul to Shiloh.
isn't that interesting?
This would be something that would have to be a budget adjustment.
Yeah.
At some point, if we were going to do that and figure out exactly what the timing is.
Do you wanna pursue that, or do you need our input? I would like to see it done, because it really needs to be done, so if you need any help from me or, yeah, this is important, so,
Maybe the three of us can talk offline.
yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We established yesterday during our conversations that the Vector truck is a product of grants, so we'll be reimbursed for all of our costs, or?
We'll be reimbursed for all of the costs of that truck from our community cost share money with the Northeast Ohio Region.
Terrific. Okay, anybody have questions? Counselor Petrus.
On that topic, are there other pieces of equipment that we might be able to purchase and not have to pay for, that we'd be able to take advantage of the cost sharing for?
Well, we use community cost share not only for equipment, but we use it to match other infrastructure projects. So we try to look at each project separately to see where we can best utilize those funds. Because we have used it for some of our MCIP projects that we've done with the sewer district. As the cities match, we use community cost share funds.
Okay. I noticed on the topic of cost sharing for other things, Euclid Heights Boulevard, westbound repaving, I think that I saw that 200,000 or 250,000
Right.
would help to offset that cost. Are there any other, does that fall into the category of what you just explained, or is that cost sharing different?
No, this cost sharing is different. That's the county's 50-50 program
Okay,
that we access those monies with.
okay. Are we, is there like a certain amount each year that we can do? Is it up to 250,000 for an entire year?
It's up to $250,000 each cycle.
Okay. If I remember correctly, one of the positions that you were hoping to have would help with capital projects. Was that one of the new positions would help to expedite or oversee capital projects?
We have a position open that we've been interviewing off and on for an assistant director, and that will help with capital projects.
Okay. Is there anything, I see 2.3 million for street resurfacing. Is there anything more that you think that you would need to further improve our streets?
We have a lot of streets that are in poor to poor condition.
Yeah.
So whatever additional funding that we could get would be helpful, would allow us to do additional streets.
Okay.
And when you think about Euclid Heights Boulevard, right off the top, we're taking about approximately $575,000 from that $2.3 million as our match for Euclid Heights Boulevard.
Right.
That's leaving us about $1.6 or $1.7 million to do the other streets within the city.
Okay.
That we select for the 2025 program.
So if council decided to allocate an additional $500,000, that would be helpful?
That would be helpful.
Okay.
Counselor Posh.
Just to follow up and maybe add some more questions about this, how much does $500,000 get us?
Well, it
for
depends on
street?
how, what length of street that we were to perform.
Okay, so it is relative, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Depends how
And we-
much you mill.
Yeah.
You know, you mill an inch, you can do more. You mill an inch and a half, you can do a little less. You can mill 2 inches was about standard, you can do less, but you get 10 years. Depending on salt usage and traffic, it's a moving kind of thing. 500,000 don't hurt. But it just, they take that core sample and that core sample tells you when it's gonna start to spider and break apart. So it's poor to really good, and then you kind of gauge in there. I hate to jump in there, sorry Colette.
so as a new council member, okay? Is this amount that we budgeted this year a typical amount, or is it?
It's typical of what we would do in a year, yes.
And it's
It is typical.
normally what, 9 to 10 streets a year?
It's usually about
Just
7 streets a year, because you have to keep in mind that some of the streets that we end up doing, we end up paying out of our road fund for that. But we pair it with another project. Say for instance, like we're gonna be doing the water line we just did on Clarendon. You know, we got a grant to do the water line, but we're paying to do the street out of our road fund, okay? But then on Altamont, we received grant money to do the water line on Altamont, but we applied to community development block grant funding to do the road portion of that job because it's in a low mod area where we can use community development block grant funds. So we try to do that where we can do that to get more bang for our buck. If that answers your question.
Yeah. I just know when University Heights made a big investment and they borrowed money to get some of their monies to do their streets, it made a world of difference.
Well, we always try to look at getting outside funding to complement the funding that we have internally. For instance, some of the sewer projects that we have going on that we were able to get financed through ARPA, those infrastructure projects, we're gonna redo the street in some of those areas, like Yellowstone. We're gonna do Yellowstone. Normally, we would be doing that out of our road program, but because of the infrastructure work that we're gonna be doing on Yellowstone, it's gonna be paid for through our ARPA funding. Same thing with North Park, from Coventry to Arlington. We're gonna be replacing that sanitary sewer, parts of the storm sewer. We're gonna do the road out of our ARPA funding. So we try to be creative and get as much done that we could get done using or complementing it with other projects.
So let's hypothetically say we had 8 streets that were on the list this year, just pulling a number out of thin air. With Euclid Heights, does that mean we're gonna do 4 streets?
No, that's aside from Euclid Heights.
It's aside from Euclid Heights, okay. That makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna step back for a minute and talk about the transfer station. So you need really 950,000, you think?
So really, I need about $1 million.
About $1 million. You've done a good job giving us detail on the things that you've done and you haven't done. The consent decree for the sewers, do you have any kind of document or plan that kind of helps us understand where we are with the implementation of that project? I know a whole slew of like 13 million went into that initiative with ARPA money. But the decree really requires us to do a lot more work than just that. Is there a way that we can get some kind of update, just so we have a rough idea to see how much farther down the road we have to go to get that done? I mean, are we halfway done with it? Are we
No.
quarter way done? I mean, that's what I'm trying. So I thought it was like a 30-some million dollar.
It's like
Initially.
400 million.
Like $500 million.
Okay, I'm not even.
And we had $18 million that we used for, that we actually used out of ARPA funding to go towards that. And we tried to take care of all the projects that we could take care of that were in tier one, we tried to take care of out of the ARPA funding that we received. Now, I know that the mayor and the law director had spoken to council maybe in the past about having our lawyer come back and kind of update council about where we are in that whole consent decree process, and I think that we could probably still do that. But to get everything done, they were projecting about $500 million. So we're just trying to get, as I said, we tried to take care of all the tier one stuff that we could do out of the ARPA funding that we received.
But is the tier two that's maybe not, that we're not doing, is that gonna end up being tier one because we're not doing that work, or is that?
Well, we're gonna end up moving down the list, yeah. Once we get all of tier one done, we're gonna move to tier two project. But we're still waiting to get that integrated plan approved by the EPA, which is a plan that we submitted with how we were gonna go about doing our projects. So we're still waiting for that, but as I indicated, that's something that I think would probably be better articulated by the lawyer that's representing the city in that case.
We could have them come to the committee of the whole in a future meeting, perhaps.
I think that before we've done it in executive session,
I'll talk to President Kudu about that.
and then whether we can coordinate it, because I know that they came and gave a presentation before we got the ARPA funding on how we were going to proceed with addressing some of the defects in our system.
Sure. Councilor Petrus.
Thank you. I'm sorry, near the end of the year, we passed legislation about the salt brine. So is that currently in use, or are we transitioning? Are we using both salt? Okay,
Right now, we're just using rock salt
okay,
because we ordered that equipment at the end of the year. The wait time to get the equipment is long, we may not even have it before the end of the season because I think it took like an 8-week delivery to get
I
it.
see. So next season. Okay,
And that's really what's kind of important about the budget. It was luckily that we did get that in before the end of the year. But with some of the items that we have in the budget for this year, depending on when it's ordered, it could be next year before we actually see that equipment.
okay. Is there anything else that you would ideally like to assist with snow removal?
Well.
Is it a matter of equipment? Is it a matter of people?
It's a combination of both,
Okay,
equipment and people.
okay,
Okay, now people, we have those positions allocated for people, but we have to get people in here with the experience that can do that kind of job.
Mhm.
All of our employees have to have their CDL licenses. And everybody that has a CDL license may not know how to plow snow.
Right.
Okay, so right now, we've been fortunate that throughout the Public Works Department, we have employees of multiple departments that help with plowing snow.
Okay.
That are not part of the street department. So that's how we're able to fill our street, fill our positions as far as getting the streets done with the amount of equipment that we have. But, we could always use additional trucks. For instance, if we were to order a couple of trucks now, it'd probably be next year before we get them.
okay.
We have to keep that in mind.
Would it be helpful if we adjusted the wages for the team members? Like, would higher pay help too?
I'm gonna speak to that. So the people who do this work are in Labor's Local 860 collective bargaining unit. We're gonna be
Yep.
having that conversation.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna call on Councilor Cobb first.
Follow-up question on the additional trucks. Do the trucks that we use to plow the snow, do they go unused then during the summer months?
No,
So,
we use them for multiple reasons. We just put a plow and a salt spreader on them during the winter time to use it. But for the other months, we use them during leaf season to haul leaves. We use them to do other infrastructure work that we do in the city. So those trucks are used year round. It's just that we add a plow and a spreader during the winter time. And that's why sometimes, during leaf season, when it snows, folks will complain about, well, my leaves didn't get finished. They have to realize that the same equipment that we use for leaf collection is used for snow removal. So when we have to break that equipment down and go back and forth, that's kind of time consuming for our mechanics.
In your opinion, how many more trucks ideally would you like to have to be able to plow the streets when we have these heavy snow events? I don't want to put you on the
Yeah,
spot. Just
because
give that some thought. And if you would, at some future time, let us know, because that is, one of the big complaints I think that all of the council members get. And I had heard that for a city of our size, we did not have the number of trucks they thought was ideal to be able to get both our main streets and our side streets.
Counselor Posh, and then I'm gonna take the floor because I have a few questions I wanna finish up.
So,
Go ahead.
so along the same lines, how's your staffing? I mean, are you fully staffed? Are you partially staffed?
I am not fully staffed, but I do have some vacant positions. And I'm at a transition period with some of my divisions because some of my employees that have been here for like 30, 32 years, they're retiring now. So when they retire, then we post a job to bring somebody else in. And it's just finding a person with the experience. But I do have the positions available to fill. And we're interviewing all the time.
Going back to the street resurfacing projects for 2025, do we have a list? Will you be able to produce a list for us in the next month or so, or?
Well, probably in the next month, and I would have to do it within the next month because we like to bid that.
Yeah.
We like to bid that out
Sure.
as soon as possible.
Sure. I'm asking if you possibly looking at resurfacing for Blanche? On Blanche?
Resurfacing?
Or
I'm not looking at
repaving?
extension.
Nothing? Okay.
So the Blanche extension is a particular project for which we received some federal dollars,
The extension.
the extension. Now, the extension requires, however, that the remainder of that project not be paid. The city is not going to be paying for the remainder
Okay.
of expense for that project. Whoever the developer is who will be benefiting by developing the land that is then made accessible by that project will be required to pay whatever additional cost that will not come out of the city's coffers.
Okay. Cleveland Heights Boulevard, where they just did that sewer repair, will that get done?
Yeah, that's gonna get repaired where they actually
Okay.
made the repair.
Thank you. And then the fire department back parking lot, that's not a street, but is that under your purview, or is that under Director Gonzalez?
I guess that would be under my purview.
So just asking about it because it was something that came up when we were talking to the
We're
fire.
gonna get an estimate to see if we can incorporate it into our road program.
Great.
And if I could say, just based on what you just said about Blanche, sometimes when we have a street that's in bad condition, I'm gonna say for instance like Ivydale. The water line on Ivydale is in poor condition. So we're not gonna invest money repairing the road until we can try to get some money to replace the water line. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, the water line is more expensive to do than it is to do the road. So we'll put an Ivydale on the back burner and won't add it into our road program, even though it's in really bad shape, because we're trying to get money from the city of Cleveland to replace the water line. And there are a few streets within the city like that. We were able to do that with Altamont, and there are a few other streets, not East Fairfax, we did that out of ARPA. But Clarendon, the street was in bad condition, and we were able to get a water grant to do the water line. So sometimes, if folks complain about a street, if there have been a lot of water main breaks on it, we may bypass that street because we're not gonna invest in putting a new road in.
Sure. you have a request on here for forestry for $275,000 for capital equipment. Are there some detail that you can provide to us on that?
Well, we have some equipment in our forestry department. It's like 20 years old and we wanna replace it.
Yeah.
And just to make a correction too, and this is my error, when I submitted my list, I put hot box truck on there, but that is not a truck, that's just the machine that a truck hauls, and that's to do our asphalt. I don't want you guys to think that I was getting a new truck. That's not actually a truck, that's just a hot box.
Thank you, thank you. One final question from me. And perhaps Mayor, you can answer this for me. When the demolition grant for the Hillside Dairy on Warrensville Center is utilized, do you anticipate any other costs that we should expect to have to complete that demo and make it a cleanup site?
So the demolition, when you do a demolition, you have to use clean fill afterward in order to fill in the hole that you leave. And generally what we, or anybody who does demolitions, typically the land bank, will seed the ground afterward. I think for our purposes, what we'll likely do upon the demolition of that property is figure out some landscaping in order to shield the rest of the property from the street view. But what that exactly looks like and what the cost will be, we don't know.
Okay.
But we have engaged with some landscape architecture professionals that we're using for other purposes. And so we can probably have a conversation with them, but right now we don't have any estimate for what would happen after that demo. We're still at this point waiting for the county land bank to actually move that process forward. It's been awarded, but we're still waiting for the money to actually come through.
Does that take a while?
It's taking as long as the county land bank is taking.
Is there any danger with the current administration in DC about losing that money?
I don't believe so.
Okay,
And I believe this is coming through the state,
Okay.
through the county land bank. And so I believe that money is already sort of in hand at the state or local level. We just haven't gotten it in hand.
all right, thank you very much. Anybody else? Thank you so much for this information. I appreciate all the work that you guys are all doing, all the departments are doing, and we'll talk about that transfer station, because we're gonna look at that really closely during Spring Scale.
Thank you.
Chief, do you wanna?
Yeah, sure. Move like Lieutenant Corrigan to the table so we can answer any questions. I misspoke earlier about where we're at with the cars and Lieutenant Corrigan, and I wanna say for the record, I can't take credit for this fine work. It goes to Lieutenant Corrigan, and I wanna acknowledge his work on this. He's been working very, very hard on this for everybody, so. Anyway, where are we at? I guess we're waiting on final approval for the budget, which has to go, once it's approved, has to get approved by the finance director and the mayor, correct? Is that where we're at?
Well, I mean, once council has a final budget.
Okay.
So the POs can be prepared, right? Or do you have to wait until we actually say okay to the budget? Can you be ready to order them as soon as?
Yeah, I mean, that would be ideal. Obviously, our chain of command is gonna be to get the okay from the mayor, and in coordination with the finance director to make sure that that money is available and has been allocated. And then once we get those two items together, then we would draw up legislation to have council formally approve it. And then once we get that resolution number, then we can take that, get a certification from the finance director, and then at that point, we'd be allowed to generate a purchase order. The sooner that's done, the better. Obviously, I talked to the dealership. They said if we can get it in by the end of this month or the beginning of next month, those vehicles wouldn't land until late August. So, and that's if we were able to get them in. I know we missed out last couple times in getting our order in on time. The supply chain, I think, is improving, but with the specialized hybrid units, they're a little harder to get a hold of. So we would like to get that order in.
Yeah.
And even if we're not paying for them until the end of the year.
I would like to see that done as well. How about the 5 we ordered or that we approved in December?
Those are getting upfitted as we speak. So thank you very
Fabulous.
much.
Fabulous.
Yes.
Counselor Posh.
So we have a meeting on Monday, February 24th. Okay, just working backwards from your timing. I mean, we're still waiting on getting information before we could even, do a final approval. I mean, I think it's optimistic that the earliest is early March. Just knowing how things have run in the past, I would be surprised if we hit that date. But we do have a special meeting on the 24th.
That's a committee of the whole, that's not a council meeting.
Yeah, but can we just, but everybody's there, can we just spend 5 minutes and get some legislation so we can amend the temporary budget, so
Let me
this
ask
can
this,
be
is
done?
the these 5 vehicles and the upfitting, is it under the same quote that the last 5 were?
None of the same,
Quote that the last 5 were?
it is correct.
Then yeah, that would be pretty easy to get together.
This way you can get your order, this way we can do our part to get you what you need to do by the end of February.
That'd be fantastic.
But someone's gonna have to give us that information, someone's gonna have to,
I suppose that would be me.
I don't think it's you, you've got a whole city behind you that does that work for you.
No, actually, it's me. It's my name on the damn legislation.
So does that sound like a plan to bring it forth for the 24th?
I'll talk with the chief and the lieutenant about it and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
Yeah, if it's okay with the mayor, then I can certainly prepare all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we talked about this at the end of the year and we know these 10 vehicles are important and because of supply chain problems, we don't wanna have that issue again, so do what we can to make it move forward. Okay?
Thank you very much.
All right. Was there any other question that we were asking you that you were gonna get back to us on, or was that it?
No, it was about the status of the additional 5 police cars.
All right.
So, but, I know everyone's, time's valuable, like you said, yeah, the other cars are coming in. And, we got like 3 or 4 now, and, yeah, we're very appreciative, so
Yeah.
hopefully soon.
And then the only other thing that you may see coming up could be the jail control systems that we're having problems with. We still need to discuss that with the mayor. But that would be sort of like an emergency type of thing. Everything else planned into the year. It's not something that needs to be done right away, but the jail controls are critical to our jail operations.
Is that the item that's on here already?
Correct.
Yeah, the top piece.
Okay. That would be something that we would like to get done quickly also.
Okay, so we'll look forward to seeing that come through as well.
Thank you so much.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
I just have one item that I'd like to introduce tonight and Addie, my composting proposal, would you mind sending that out to everybody that might be interested? I will resend it to you.
Please resend it to me.
I will resend it to you.
Thank you.
What I'm proposing is a request for $38,160 for a citywide composting program that would have two areas set up, one north and one south, for citizens to drop off without being charged for it to get the composting program in the city started. It's a pilot project. We'll see how it goes. We'll keep data. And I'd just like to, as we put together the request from council, that will be something coming from me as well. So,
This is Rust Belt Riders,
well,
to the,
yes and no. They provided the information that I used to build my proposal, but we'll have to put out an RFQ in order to get most like, there aren't very many companies that do this anyway, but we'll have to put out an RFQ in all fairness and following protocols for.
But it's similar to the Beechwood program.
Yes, yeah, in fact, we use that as a model. So, the Climate and Environmental Sustainability Committee's been working with me on that as well. So, I'll make sure that gets sent out to Addie. Other than that, I do not have any other questions. Everybody good?
When's our next meeting?
Counselor Maddox, I was just asked when our next meeting is. We know we need to do one next week. Would you please respond to the doodle poll that Addie sent out?
Yes, I'm waiting on confirmation of the 2 other meetings that I have. Once I confirm those, I'll let you know what openings that I have. Next week is pretty tight.
It would be great to have you there though, if we can. So, Addie's looking for your response.
How long is that meeting planning on being? That's part of the issue. Some of these meetings run over 2 hours, and so it's running into other things. So we can keep it to an hour, or maybe an hour and a half. That like today, that's fine. But some of these were getting out of hand, and it's causing other things to get pushed out. So if we can tighten these up, that would help a lot. So if we have any idea how long that meeting might be, that would be a lot more helpful.
Let's project an hour for it right now and use that as a soft stop. And if we go 5-10 minutes over, would that be okay?
That's fine.
All right, because this is the last, it's my hope that this is the last meeting of the Finance Committee before we return it, the ordinance 11/2025 back to council, hopefully on the 3rd. So
Okay.
I'd appreciate you for taking care of that. All right,
Absolutely.
all right, thank you. No other comments? You good? Go
Well,
ahead.
I did wanna see if there were any other questions from people present, unrelated to capital, any other questions that people might have, that we might be able to provide what little input or greater input on anything that is plaguing anybody right now.
I just had a quick question. If we do the police, that'll come out of the 25, correct?
No.
No? Okay.
I heard some questions today a little bit about staffing. We wanna make sure that you have what you need to staff your departments the way that you would like to see them staffed, if there's anything you can help with there.
I appreciate that. And we've been making moves administratively and we'll be making more. When it comes to increased budgeting for staffing, we wanna do that relatively gradually
Okay.
with a focus on our more urgent needs. And so that's why we focused most heavily on fire this time around in terms of an increase, because that has been a long time coming. There are other potential staffing increases that we might ask for in subsequent years. But like I said, those are ongoing operational costs, so we wanna be a little bit more gradual, a little more careful about making those sorts of changes. And importantly, we wanna make sure that we have processes in place that are more efficient so that we actually know how much staff we need. Because you don't wanna just throw bodies at something if there are ways that you can increase efficiency, not with an eye toward cutting, but with an eye toward actually right-sizing our increases. We know that there are gonna be increases. There need to be increases in staffing in various places in the organization. But we wanna make sure that we're not over-increasing, that will result in any cuts, necessary later because of a lack of a need for the additional productivity.
Okay. Anybody else have anything before we gather next week? Director Harrison, really looking forward to seeing those year-end reports.
Yes, I'm very anxious to complete that project.
And did Director Feltz get back okay? Is he safe?
He did, he's safe.
All right, thank you so much. All right, I'm looking around the room at 3:12. I'm going to adjourn this meeting and thank you very much, everyone.